Ben Simmons is making his opponent debut tonight at Wells Fargo Center. The Eagles, well, their QB controversy may all but be over. And the Flyers, well, they're on a 2 consecutive game win streak. All that coming to you on Sports Talk Philadelphia. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. I'm your host for another week, Cale Flieger, and may look a little different. We don't have any masks on for the first time in about 2 years now, so I'm joined by the usual panel, my co-producer, Aiden Sosinski. Aiden, how are we doing today?
Happy to be here. Happy to finally have my face on camera.
Yeah, first time ever. And Matt Dorenzo back for another episode. Matt?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited to see Ben Simmons finally get what's coming for him.
Yeah, well, we have a lot to talk about today on Sports Talk Philadelphia. And first, we're going to open up with the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers, we talked about last week how they had a big 4-game stretch against top Eastern Conference opponents. Well, they played 3 out of 4 games so far, and they're 2-1 so far, as they defeated the Cavaliers, who are a top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, 125-119. They did lose to the Miami Heat, 99-82, but James Harden did not play. And they also beat the Chicago Bulls, a very impressive win at home, 121-106. Overall, I think Sixers fans need to be really happy going 2-1 over a stretch of 3 games where in one of the games you didn't have one of your superstars, and obviously probably didn't expect to get the win there. But the other 2 games, very dominant against top Eastern Conference opponents. I do want to start out with the Cavaliers game, go back to that. Tyrese Maxey, 33 points. Just overall, probably his best game he's had as a Philadelphia 76er. I just want to open up to you guys. How important has it been that Tyrese Maxey has amped up his level of play since James Harden has gotten here? And also just the way he's really grown into that 3rd star role.
You know, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing is obviously you scored a lot of points against 2 games against the Knicks, 1 against the Timberwolves. Those are very low-tier opponents. We weren't sure how he was going to play with the big 3, playing top-tier level teams. Playing against the Cavs and scoring 33 points, that's really impressive considering that the Cavs have some of the best young guards in the NBA. Obviously, Maxey we think is up there as well, but obviously, we didn't know how he would do, and he did amazing. And he's been playing really well in these last other games as well. I'm so happy to see that he's playing well with these guys.
Yeah, I mean, Aiden probably nailed it. We didn't know what to expect with Maxey playing alongside superstar James Harden, but he came out against the first 2 games against the Knicks and Timberwolves, and they're not good opponents. They're average. So the Cavaliers game was really his first test with James Harden next to him, and he shined. 33 points, he lights out from 3, and Harden, 25 and 11. Those 2 right now, a dynamic backcourt duo. I'm so excited.
Yeah, the Sixers, after they defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers at home, they went to travel to the Miami Heat and played them. They did lose 99-82, but James Harden was ruled out. Not anything serious, just load management with that hamstring injury that he has been dealing with this season. Overall, just not an impressive game for the Sixers against the Heat. I mean, Joel Embiid only had 22 points, Tyrese Maxey 17 points, but besides those 2, everyone else was below about 8 points. So, I mean, not a very impressive performance by the Sixers. Did that game worry you guys at all that the Sixers didn't hang in there? But at the same time, the Heat, they did have mostly everybody on their team. I don't think Jimmy Butler played, but pretty much we didn't have James Harden. So, at the same time, game where –
Yeah, so my biggest concern about the entire game was how Embiid played without Harden for the first time. Yeah. He shot 5 for 14 from the field, which isn't good numbers, and then he shot 0 for 6 for 3. At a certain point, you have to realize as a center, you don't have to take those shots. And I understand that he hasn't been taking those shots with Harden, but he just felt like that he reverted back to the way that he played without Ben Simmons. And we were okay, but it didn't feel like we were a championship-level team. At this point, looking at the way that he played against Heat, it didn't feel like that we were a championship-level team. And I get it that Harden wasn't playing, but Embiid just has to step up and understand what his range is for when he feels comfortable shooting the ball.
You know, exactly. It was a really tough loss in Miami on Saturday. No Harden playing put a lot more pressure back on Embiid, and it clearly showed. They were doing double and triple teams, and he really didn't know how to answer it. He did have 22 points and 15 rebounds, but he was 4-15 shooting, and that just can't go from your MVP superstar. Harris, with Harden now, Harris needs to step up. And with Harden out, Maxey also needs to be that playmaker and ball handler, and it's really unacceptable for your point guard to have 1 assist. I know he's not used to the role now that Harden's been there, but 1 assist from point guard in the National Basketball League is not going to win you many basketball games.
Well, a good thing was after a bad loss against the Miami Heat, the Sixers did bounce back against the Chicago Bulls team that is a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. Joel Embiid, after a rough game against the Miami Heat, 5 of 14 shooting, put his MVP form back as he had 43 points, 14 rebounds. James Harden, a very impressive game again, 16 points, 14 assists. He's leading the league in assists now. And then Tyrese Maxey, 17 points, his usual points per game. So overall, this was a very good win against a good Chicago Bulls team. I know the Chicago Bulls, they are a bit riddled by injuries right now. They don't have Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, a key bench player for the team, and they were missing Nikolai Vucevic, their starting center. But still, a very impressive win. I mean, the Sixers had the reins on the game pretty much the entire time, and it wasn't very a close game for the Bulls.
You're not really. And the other thing, too, is that the Bulls have DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, who has also been really good in the backcourt. So the fact that we were able to hold them to only 106 points and still put up the numbers that we did, it's an awesome win. And I feel like it's a good momentum going into the game tonight.
Yeah, no, after the loss on Saturday, it was a great bounce-back win on Monday. Embiid showed that he's capable of doing what he did. He had 43 points, 15 rebounds, and James Harden with 14 assists was just awesome to watch. Maxey and Harris did struggle on offense, but their defense there, good defense leads a good offense. And if it's not on, let Harden and Embiid take over the offense and fill your role as it comes. And I really like how they did it against the struggling Bulls.
Yeah, overall, it was a very successful 3-game stretch so far for the Philadelphia 76ers. The NBA did release their current MVP rankings throughout the NBA, and Joel Embiid is not number 1 currently. He's number 2, as Nikola Jokic, who won MVP last season, is number 1 currently. You can look at their statistics there. I mean, Nikola Jokic this season, about 26 points per game, 13.8 rebounds per game, 8.1 assists per game. We all know the type of things he can do on the offensive end of the court. And then Joel Embiid, the leading scorer in the NBA right now at 29.7 points per game, 11.2 rebounds, 4.3 assists per game. The big difference is Nikola Jokic's Denver Nuggets team is, I think they're a 6th to 7th seed team in the Western Conference. I know they're a little more, teams are a little bit better over there right now, but the Sixers are a number 3 team currently in the Eastern Conference. So we do have a higher standing. Where do you guys see the MVP race right now? Do you favor Embiid over Jokic, or do you think Jokic is going to get back-to-back MVPs?
Yeah, so my exact thought with the whole race is Embiid has led the Sixers to a top 3 seed, while Jokic, they're 6th seed on the verge of a play-in game. And Jokic, he won it last year. He's been averaging 26 points, 14 rebounds, 8 assists, my mistake, and nearly triple-double. From the center position, you don't really see that. But Joel Embiid, before we got James Harden, with no Ben Simmons, nobody thought the Sixers would do anything. There was a point where we were 14-14 at one point, and then we went on a 21-7 run to end the All-Star break to All-Star break. Embiid having 30 points and 12 rebounds. Like, plays great defense. I do think Embiid should win the MVP, but the way the league votes, I do think they will favor Jokic for now, because nobody else sees a center who ever played like that before.
Yeah, so after Joel Embiid got snubbed last year, I thought that this was an easy snub in for him. And the fact that the NBA, who's ever writing this or picking these polls, is doing this, I just don't know how they see this. First of all, last year Embiid led the Sixers to the number 1 seed and nearly led us into a Game 7 win against a very good Hawks team without Ben Simmons basically doing anything for him at all. And then this season is the leading scorer in the NBA, and the NBA voters are still saying that he might not win. I just think it's ridiculous, and I think that you need to look at a different way for centers, because I understand that Jokic doesn't play like a typical center, but Embiid is doing things that nobody's done on the basketball court since Will Chamberlain. I think he deserves to win. I think that who's ever writing these polls just doesn't know what they're really doing, honestly.
Yeah, like I said before, Joel Embiid is currently leading the NBA in scoring right now. And the last center to finish the season with the leading scoring title was Shaquille O'Neal. So Joel Embiid is putting up historic numbers this season, and I completely agree, Aiden. He got snubbed last year, and it'd be a real shame if he got snubbed again this year, especially the way Joel Embiid has carried and put this Philadelphia 76ers team in a spot to succeed this year without having Ben Simmons for half the year. So it's a pretty good thing. We are going to jump to the Eastern Conference Finals right now. The Sixers, they're still 3rd in the Eastern Conference, but it's a tight Eastern Conference towards the top 3. You have the Heat, you have the Bucks. The Bucks, with their win last night, did move to number 2 over the Philadelphia 76ers. There are 18 games remaining in the regular season. The Sixers are currently 2.5 games behind the Miami Heat. Is this a good spot for the Philadelphia 76ers to be in? I know we talked a few episodes ago. If you do get that number 1 seed, you do face a chance of facing the Brooklyn Nets in the first round of the playoffs, which it's a very tough opponent to have in the first round of the playoffs as a number 1 seed. So are you guys happy with the way the Sixers are sitting in the standings right now?
At this point, I'm just very concerned about that Heat team. First of all, they've always played a great zone against Joel Embiid. They've got great coaching. They've got the players to do it with Abayo and a couple other guards that can really go down low. So I am happy the Sixers have 3 seed. I think they could finish in the 2. I think that they can beat the Bucks possibly in the next couple games that they have. I just am very worried about a couple of the teams that are ahead of them still.
Yeah, no, I think it's a wonderful place to be right now. 3 seed means we'd have home court against Cleveland right now. Cleveland, they're going beyond expectations this year. Not an inexperienced team, so I do like we are right now playing them first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, that's all we have for the standings, and a big game that a lot of people have circled on their calendar for quite a few weeks now is tonight's game. The 76ers are hosting the Brooklyn Nets for the last time this regular season. It's Ben Simmons' first time being back in Wells Fargo Center as an opponent. Ben Simmons will not play, but he will be sitting on the bench. And the Sixers already announced that they have playoff-level security around the Brooklyn Nets bench. Also, tickets behind the Brooklyn Nets bench are selling for $4,000 plus. This is like an NBA Finals type price for these tickets. I mean, it's insane, especially for Ben Simmons not even playing. But I want to hear a lot of boos at Wells Fargo Center tonight. No throwing trash or anything like that, but definitely want to hear some boos for someone who just turned his back on the franchise overall. Well, that's all we have for the Philadelphia 76ers. Hopefully get the win tonight over the Brooklyn Nets, get some payback on Ben Simmons. We are going to jump to some Eagles talk. It is the offseason right now, but the Eagles had a QB controversy, not really controversy, but they had a few options going into this offseason. We had Russell Wilson apparently asked for a trade, Aaron Rodgers apparently wanting out. But this past week, a lot of QBs got traded or re-signed with their current teams. We had Aaron Rodgers re-signed with the Green Bay Packers for a 4-year, $250 million contract. I think that shocked a lot of people, to be honest with you, especially the way the Packers season ended last year. You have Russell Wilson, got traded to the Denver Broncos. I thought that was a very shocking trade, and a trade that puts the Denver Broncos in a very good position to make a run next year. And the only other QB that was pretty much on the market that's available is Deshaun Watson still. And we know all the baggage that he kind of comes with and all the legal cases that still need to be solved out yet. So do you guys think, after seeing this past week with the QBs getting traded, re-signing with their teams, will the 2022 QB for the Philadelphia Eagles be Jalen Hurts next year?
I have to say so. I mean, 2 shocking moves so far. You kind of figured out Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson would be able to move. Did not expect Rodgers to sign that long of a deal and that big of a deal in Green Bay, but he did. And Russell Wilson, Seattle wasn't going anywhere. They needed to revamp their team for the future. Denver, beautiful spot. Great receivers, great defense. So after all those quarterbacks are gone, I did want to stick with Jalen Hurts, and then it fell right in our lap. And now that's what we have to do. We have to build around him and stick with him going forward.
You know, I 100% agree with Matt just said. I think that Jalen Hurts is going to be the starter. I think that with Russell Wilson off the board, with Aaron Rodgers getting that huge contract, I don't see anyone else coming in. I could see maybe a backup quarterback coming in just to get for some competition. Mitchell Trubisky has been talked about a lot between like the Giants wanting to get rid of Daniel Jones. So there could be some other quarterbacks available that aren't going to be like your top tier starters, but could at least give Jalen Hurts that competition that he needs. So we are 100% certain this is the guy we want to go with.
Yeah, like we talked about before, the Eagles do have 3 first-round draft picks, but the QB draft class is very weak this upcoming draft. Malik Willis has showed a lot of promise in the combine so far, but at the same time, when you're drafting a rookie quarterback, you're accepting the fact that you're going to have a lot of rebuilding to do, and there's going to be a lot of road bumps in this upcoming season. So I definitely see the Eagles rolling with Jalen Hurts. I definitely think it's the right move, especially with the cap space he brings onto this roster. You can really build a complete team around Jalen Hurts this upcoming season. And I think there's a lot of things to build on, especially after he brought the Eagles to the playoffs as a year-one starter. So definitely a lot of upside with Jalen Hurts. A big thing in the QB world that happened was Carson Wentz got traded from the Indianapolis Colts to the Washington Commanders for 3 third-round picks. Wentz, in his first season with the Indianapolis Colts, he had an all-right season, but 8-9 record. Lost against the worst team in football last game of the season to make the playoffs, so I think that was a big reason why the Colts moved on from him. But overall, I just think this is completely crazy. I mean, he had the perfect scenario. You had Indianapolis, a small football town. The media is not as hard as Philadelphia. You're with your buddy Frank Reich as your head coach. You have a great running game with Jonathan Taylor, and you still couldn't get it done. So in my book, I think Carson Wentz he's a journeyman now. I mean, I don't think he will ever go back to that form he was in 2017. And I just think it's crazy that he's back in the NFC East again. The Eagles are about to be playing Carson Wentz twice a year now again.
Yeah, no, there's so many stories that have come out recently. I think the biggest one out of all of it was that Jim Irsay, the Colts owner, wasn't a huge Wentz fan. He was talked into getting Wentz by Frank Reich, who obviously we all know was Wentz's quarterback coach in 2017. They all thought that they could fix Wentz. It just didn't happen. I think Irsay just was thinking, if this is going to be a one-year thing, if it doesn't work out, I'm fine moving on from him and finding a good quarterback, and that's exactly what happened.
So for the longest time, I always hoped and prayed after the injury he would come back to form when he was in Philadelphia. The MVP caliber he was, but we did ship him off to Indianapolis, and we got a good haul back, a first-round pick. And now he's on the Commanders. Always be the football team in my eyes now at this point. But the Commanders, newly named team, struggling for a quarterback, good defense, solid O-line, good weapons around him. It is going to be hard to play against him 2 times a year, but I do hope he does success against the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants.
Yeah, the Commanders, they were in the market for a quarterback, and they made that very known as they made a very aggressive offer for Russell Wilson, but obviously the Seahawks wanted to get him out of the conference, did not want to keep him in the NFC, so completely understand that. And then they saw a move to pounce on Wentz, and they did it, and they got their QB, hopefully for the future for them. But we will see, as they are one of the worst franchises in the NFL, so we'll see how it goes there for Carson Wentz. Hopping into some free agencies coming up for the NFL. The franchise tag just went out. A lot of wide receivers that the Eagles could have gotten went away, but still a few options here for the Eagles to go. I got Allen Robinson, who the Bears are letting him walk into free agency. DJ Chark, Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver, he's heading to free agency. And Juju Smith-Schuster, who I'm not that big of a fan of, but he's also a free agent, and the Eagles have shown interest in him before, and they're showing it right now. So out of the wide receivers that are available, who would you guys like to see the Eagles sign? And I know I forgot to mention this, the Cowboys potentially cutting Amari Cooper could also be another option for the Eagles.
Yeah, no, I really like Allen Robinson. He's a big receiver, a Penn State guy, and him alongside Devontae Smith, the shifty little receiver, just have somebody you can go up and throw the ball to. A-Rod has to be our guy. We'd be targeting this offseason.
You know, I think that Amari Cooper, if he gets cut by the Dallas Cowboys, would be an awesome addition to the team. I think they would add that big wide receiver that we don't have at this point. I think that he would go great with Devontae Smith. If that doesn't happen, I would love Allen Robinson as well.
Yeah, free agency is definitely going to be a very important time for the Philadelphia Eagles, as they do have top 3 cap space in the NFL going into free agency. So a lot of moves the Eagles can make to make this roster better for the future. That is all we have for the Eagles, as we're going to hop into the Flyers right now. As the Flyers, they kind of turned things around as they were on another losing streak. They won 2 games in a row. So they beat the Blackhawks 4-3, a very close game. I think it went to overtime. And they beat the Golden Knights 2-1. Golden Knights, a very good team, been in the playoffs usually every year. Overall, what have the Flyers done in this 2-game stretch that gave them, put them back in the win column, as we've seen them go on many losing streaks throughout this season so far?
I mean, it had to be the comeback of Carter Hart and the comeback of Joel Farabee. Just as Aiden said a few weeks ago, it probably lifted the team's spirits up a little bit. But, of course, they win 2 games now, when there's really nothing to play for but that first overall pick. I was talking to a good friend of mine, a huge Flyers fan. He goes, of course, after 1 seed, they let us down last year. They let us down last year, and the second we want that first pick, the second we want the top draft capital, they start winning games. And that's just a Philadelphia sports way to go.
Yeah, so I think the 2 biggest players in the 2 different games, the first one was Cam Atkinson getting 3 of the Flyers' 4 points, and then the second was Carter Hart getting 47 saves out of 48 shots. He just had an awesome game, and again, the defense let him down, and he was able to get back up. I really think that at this point it's starting to seem like that Carter Hart isn't the problem, that it's always been the defense, and he always has these few games that seems to prove that fact. It makes me wonder if the Flyers are going to want to go with him if they go in a rebuild, or try to get rid of him some more draft capital. I just don't know at this point. It's going to be interesting to see in the offseason.
Yeah, it definitely is a move in the right direction that Carter Hart is showing his potential and talent that he's shown previously in other seasons. It's great to see him bounce back. And a guy like Cam Atkinson, a free agent signing this past season, had his ups and downs this season, but like you said, 3 out of 4 goals in a game, really showing the value he brings to the Philadelphia Flyers squad. We are going to jump into the Metropolitan Division standings. The Flyers currently are in last place in the Metropolitan. They're a point behind the New Jersey Devils for that number 1 overall pick. Overall, the Flyers are 18-28-10 on the season. Not a very impressive record at all. But getting the number 1 overall pick is a step in the right direction to rebuild your roster and get some young talent in this organization that the Flyers currently don't have.
Yeah, so unfortunately for the Flyers, that 1 seed just doesn't look possible. They're so bad in the Metropolitan, but not bad enough in the NHL. You look at these other teams, the Canadians, who last year were in the finals and really fell off this year, only at 37 points. And then there's also the fact that the Coyotes, who have been losers pretty much the last 10 years, only have 38, and then the Kraken, who are an expansion team this year, only have 39. So, but what's the really sad part is the Flyers, who have been this historically great team, one of the most watched teams in the city, have the most passionate fans, arguably outside of the Eagles. They're so bad that we're with these either expansion teams or teams that have just been really bad for so long. It's really sad to see for the Flyers, and I hope that they can figure this out at some point.
Yeah, no, you could have said it better. The Flyers, Philadelphia is a great sports town, great hockey team past 20 years. And to be in the standings with the Arizona Coyotes team, I don't think they made playoffs in a decade. The Seattle Kraken, a team who just was an expansion team. And now, of course, like I said earlier, they're beating the Golden Knights out of nowhere, the Capitals out of nowhere. They couldn't beat these teams within a mile early in the season. All of a sudden, they're doing it now, late in the season, trying to either prove us a point or just trying to ruin their draft capital.
Yeah, the Flyers, obviously, their draft picks are going to mean a lot for this upcoming season if they want to get back into contending and being the playoff team that we all know they could be. Aiden, like you mentioned, their defense has been a very big problem this past season. Do you think that's a direction they go into the draft, is really focusing on that defense, ensuring that area of their team up?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing with the defense is just the fact that Ryan Ellis only got to play 4 games and got hurt. Because in those 4 games, the defense just looks so much better this year compared to last year. And then that injury happened to him, and he hasn't been able to really play since he tried coming back and then got hurt. So I think that they might look at free agency again. I really hope that they go for the draft because Ivan Provorov has just been really he just hasn't been good, honestly, for the Flyers. So I hope that they do look at that defense in the draft and try finding some good guys to build that up.
And I agree. They definitely should. Defense wins championships. That phrase has been said throughout all sports. And a great defense leads to great goaltending. And if you have nothing in front of Carter Hart, it's going to be really hard to win games. So we do have young pieces in the offense with Konechny and Farabee and even Lindblom. So if you build that defense, maybe Provorov does step his game up like we have seen in the past. It'll allow Carter Hart to play his game, and maybe the Flyers can look for a title in the future.
Yeah, like we all know, the Flyers did fire their head coach earlier in the season, Alain Vigneault. Their current interim head coach has been Mike Yeo. He's 10-18-4 as the Flyers head coach since December 6th. Not a very impressive record. He has gone on a double-digit losing streak just like Alain Vigneault did, so not much of a difference there. But obviously going into this offseason, the Flyers have to answer the question is who's going to be their next head coach. Looking at the season, the current spot they're in right now, do you think it's more of a chance that Mike Yeo does come back and is the Flyers head coach next season, or do you think they're kind of going to go a different direction here?
See, they're definitely going to look to bring him back, but I really think it how they draft. If they draft to go for the defense, then you got to bring in a defensive-minded coach because your defense has been struggling the past few seasons. So hopefully they do look at that option.
Yeah, the Flyers definitely have a lot to improve on, but winning 2 games in a row is a step in the right direction, and they do play the Florida Panthers tonight, a very good team in the NHL, so we'll see what happens there, but that's all we have for Flyers. We are going to hop into Fast 5 now. The first one we're going to go to is This Week in College Basketball, Aiden Tusinski.
And so it is March. Unfortunately, the March Madness tournament hasn't completely started yet, but the conference tournaments are in play right now, and there have been a few teams that have locked up their March Madness bid. The biggest one so far that was most unexpected was Delaware. They were a 5th seed entering the Colonial Athletic Association tournament. They had been on the 3-game losing streak in conference play going into that tournament, so they weren't really expected to win. The first team they had to play was Drexel, who last year won the Colonial and made it into the March Madness. They were able to win that, and then crushed Townsend, who had lost to 2 times this year before this game. So just an awesome conference tournament by Delaware. I hope that they can be a little bit higher in the tournament. They'll probably fall to like a 10th or 11th seed, but it's been awesome to see what they've been doing so far, and hopefully the rest of the tournament works out that way as well.
Yeah, definitely a lot of early March Madness stuff that's been happening in these conference tournaments. It's just a great time of year for college basketball, as we all love the month of March for basketball. And everyone's going to be making those brackets in the next upcoming weeks here. So definitely looking forward to that. Reaction to Calvin Ridley pretty much got suspended for 1 year after he got caught betting on NFL games. He apparently put around $1,500 towards these bets. But Matt, we're going to go to you for this one. Was the NFL a little strict here with a 1-year suspension?
I just think it's really funny because that's the last thing I expected to see as a phone alert that day. But they had to do it to prove a point. Because if you don't suspend him, then it opens up the whole idea of sports betting from professional athletes. And it only was $1,500, and he was away from basketball operations. So the 1 year might be a little aggressive, but the NFL did have to prove a point, and that's only the one thing I will agree with Roger Goodell on.
Yeah, I did. The only thing I do disagree with Roger Goodell is you look at a lot of these players like Randy Gregory, Ezekiel Elliott, who were in a lot of assault cases, got their games reduced to around 6 games. So, and you got a guy who was away from football, like you said, bet $1,500 on a couple parlays, and he's getting suspended for 16 games. I don't think it makes any sense. I do think there should be a suspension, but 16 games is a little brutal here for Calvin Ridley. But we'll see what happens here. As he was at Eagles, one of the guys they could have traded for, but obviously not anymore. We are going to move to the next question here. The AFC West, is that the best quarterback division in football? I definitely believe it is so. After Russell Wilson got traded to the Denver Broncos, if you just look at that division as a whole, you got the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl winner, MVP already. You have Justin Herbert for the Los Angeles Chargers, who he's shown his potential and how good he can be during the regular season. Hasn't made the playoffs yet, but still. And then you have Russell Wilson, another Super Bowl winner in that division, just got traded to the Denver Broncos. And then you got the Oakland Raiders, who had Derek Carr. He's not on the tier of those 3 quarterbacks, but he's still a very good quarterback that led the Las Vegas Raiders to a playoff game with their head coach getting fired, with Henry Ruggs, all that drama. So I definitely think that is definitely the best quarterback division in football, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch those division games next year when the NFL season starts. We are going to go back to a little college basketball question. With March Madness coming up, we're going to go to Aiden for this one. Do you have an early winner for March Madness?
So I'm going to be honest, do not listen to my pick because every time that I've done March Madness, I've only been able to pick the winner once when I picked North Carolina win, and they did. But I will say that the one team that has been very consistent all year is the team that I've been very high on, team that won last year, Baylor. They're still very good. They're still one of the top teams in the Big 12. They still are looking to push this year. They have that veteran experience like I've talked about in the past. I think that you can also look at Duke, and I think either of those teams are going to be good picks to have.
Yeah, I would really favor Duke to get it just because of the fact that it's Coach K's last season. He did face that tough loss at home against unranked UNC, actually. But overall, Duke, like you said, they have a very talented roster like they do every other year. But especially Coach K's last year, you've got to think those players are going to be playing with a different type of energy, especially trying to get one more championship for already a Hall of Fame career for Coach K. Last question we're going to go to Matt for this one. Aaron Rodgers re-signed that 4-year contract with the Green Bay Packers. Will Aaron Rodgers win another Super Bowl with the Packers?
As an Eagles fan, I hope he does. I hope he does. He deserves it. They really should.
Yeah, I definitely think Aaron Rodgers has the potential, especially re-signing Devontae Adams. But that's all we have for Fast 5 today, and that's all we have for Sports Talk Philadelphia. I want to thank you guys for joining in and watching us again for another episode. Don't forget to follow us on our social media pages on Instagram and Twitter at Sports Talk LTV. And that's all we have for another episode, and I want to thank you guys for coming through and watching again.